Gina Miller burst into the spotlight back when Brexit dominated our lives. A businesswoman who had come to the UK from Guyana as a child and then went on to challenge the UK government in the courts. She's achieved more than almost anyone when it comes to pushing for transparency in the banking sector. And now she's on the campaign trail again as she fights to become an MP. But life hasn't always been easy. She fled a turbulent second marriage with just the clothes on her back and her daughter Lucy-Anne, coming here to Dalston, where she slept in her car. So how did she go from that to public prominence? This is her story. Hi, Gina.
Hi, Laura.
Nice to see you.
And you.
How is it being back in Dalston?
Emotional. Seems a lifetime away. Same noise and colours, but very different life to the one I have now. It was a struggle. It was times where I never really thought I'd survive and I'd make it. So it's incredibly emotional, but it is also an important part of what's made me and formed me to who I am today.
This was basically the part of town where you rebuilt after what was a difficult marriage, a difficult time in your life.
Yeah, it's I came back to Dalston because I had been here when I was younger. When I was going to university, I lived around here, so I knew the area. So I had to go to somewhere that was familiar. So Dalston I knew also because of the noise and the way people live in Dalston. I also sort of knew I could hide here. I could sort of like just disappear into the fabric of Dalston, and nobody would really notice me. So I'd have the time and space. So it was a mixture of coming back to what was familiar, but also understanding I needed time and space to basically heal. Because when you go through domestic violence, every part of you is broken. Physically, mentally, emotionally, you feel as though you're drowning and you need to be able to survive and put your head back above the waterline. And that's what Dalston was able to give me.
Well, let's go take a look at where you spent some of your time before you became a really known person. So we're going to head across to Ridley Road Market. Familiar?
It already looks different. It looks so much more posh, I mean, and clean compared to the Ridley Road Market. But the Kickland's Butcher's still there. Yeah, there's a lot of halal and places along here. But also, for me, having come from South America, coming from Guyana, this is a lot of fruits and vegetables that I grew up with. A lot of, and cheap, which at that time for me was so important. So I used to come here towards the end of market when they were closing down the stalls. And they'd have bruised or leftover stuff that they'd throw away. And that's how they'd either give it to me or I could buy it for next to nothing for a whole bag of oranges that were going off or plantain or whatever. So yeah, I would tend to come at the end of the day to Ridley Road. But it still looks the same.
Money was tight.
Because there's just something in me. I've always been really proud and I refuse to sign on for benefit. I refuse to take money from other people. So I was just going to make what I could earn. So I would stand outside car phone warehouses and give out leaflets to working in local, anything I could do just to earn a bit of money. And then I'd come with Lucy-Anne, my daughter, who was then little. So she was just, but she had special needs. So she always thought it was a big adventure to come and open the bags and get all the stuff that was going off. So for her, it was a game. But yeah, money was really tight. I mean, a lot of people know this, but you literally look in every coat pocket, the side of the sofa, everywhere, just see if there's another 10p, another coin that you could get to go out. People know what I'm talking about, who are struggling. But yeah, every week it would be, did I have £1 or did I have another £2? Could I come out and buy something?
How did the community help at that time? Because it certainly feels like there would be that sense of community, and there definitely is when you speak to people who are in that kind of position now.
Oh, there is. And, in the street I lived in, Princess May Road, that, my neighbour, the person upstairs, because I have the street level flat, and the people above me, we were all in the same boat. And so we'd come together, and if we had an onion, we'd all barter, who's got what tonight? And we'd then come and do a pot. In a way, it's probably the best sort of community. Even though you have nothing, you have everything.
That picture of you struggling as a far cry from the image that a lot of people have of you.
Yeah, it's sometimes it can be frustrating when people think, oh, she's got so much, whatever, or I just got it. It just somehow landed on my plate. And I know a lot of people who've been successful suffer from that people don't understand the backstory of where they came from. And I sometimes look back and think, how did I get here? I'm not sure how I had the strength. And I do think about it from time to time. And I think it's because I had her. I knew Lucianne, my daughter especially, I had to be a lioness. I had to fight for her because other people wouldn't, and they wouldn't understand her. So I think that's the thing that drove me. I'm not convinced that if I didn't have her, I wouldn't have taken my own life, because I did try on several occasions, but she was always the one that brought me back. Sorry, it's really emotional to think about that, but yeah, I think she saved me.
That's hard to hear, I think, for anyone, that was how you felt, really. Do you look at your daughter now and sort of almost thank her?
I do, actually. I tell her all the time that she's mummy's saviour. I mean, she'll be 36 soon, and her mental age is about 5 or 6. And I tell her all the time, and she knows it. And she sort of sometimes, if I'm telling her off, she then turns around and says, but I'm your saviour. So she does bring it back on me as well. She's smart enough to know that. And she has got, her IQ might not be great, but her EQ, her empathy is amazing. She saved me. Gosh, I haven't been here for a little while.
And how did you end up renting here? Because am I right in thinking that when you first actually came back to Dalston, you were actually living in a car?
Yeah, I didn't have any money. I hadn't taken anything. I didn't want to take anything. I just wanted to start over and think about Lucianne and I. So, as I said, I knew it was somewhere it was familiar to me. And I didn't have any money because things were in joint names, and I couldn't. I couldn't get my hands on any money or anything like that. So I had to stay in the car for a while, which was terrifying because Lucianne was frightened of loud noises, lights, and she'd bury her head into my chest in the evenings, being so upset and so frightened. And I just have to try and sing her songs and nursery rhymes, and when she'd eventually go to sleep, I'd plot and plan about what I was going to next do for my next business and how I was going to work. And I literally planned my business in my car at the time at night. But I knew we had to get a flat or a house. So what I used to do was go down to all the estate agents. I couldn't go to a proper estate agent to find a flat, because then you'd have to do all the paperwork. Mm-hmm. And I was convinced that my ex-husband would find out. So
you were essentially homeless, right?
I was hopeless. So I needed an address. And you couldn't, I couldn't get her in school. I couldn't do anything unless we had an address. So I'd go to all the news agents and look in the windows. And I saw this little postcard that said flat for rent. And I walked down here and I thought, it's quite a quiet street. This would be a nice place for us to have a flat. But I thought, I can't afford it. And then when I was walking along looking at it, the woman who lived in the flat above came down and sort of said, oh, are you looking for a flat? And I said, yeah, I am, but it's really expensive. This is my daughter. She said, oh, I've got a daughter, and the daughters were similar age. Her daughter was called Nerida. I remember, she was lovely. And she said, oh, I know the landlord. Don't worry about going through the agents. I'll phone him up and say, I've met you. You're really nice. And you can meet him. So she arranged for me to meet the landlord.
And without meeting that woman, it
was just purely by chance that she came down and was coming out when I was coming in. And then she was so sweet. She said, oh, yeah, because I want you and your daughter, because you're nice. Then Nerida can play with her. And she was so sweet. She was so sweet about it. But yes, there's so many times in life when fate intervenes and, a lot comes along and something happens. So, yeah, it was lovely. Gosh, it's here still.
So now I guess you're known as the Brexit woman.
Or as someone said, quite often I get bloody difficult woman.
I don't know if that's the worst thing to be known
as. I don't know either.
So how did it feel to be kind of thrust into the spotlight at that point? Because, you were relatively well known in the finance sector.
Yeah.
But publicly, Joe didn't know who you were.
No. Well, it was totally unexpected. The whole process, it's quite extraordinary when people go, I didn't choose what happened, because I was one of a number of clients or potential clients who were bringing my particular court case, but then there were about another 4 court cases. So there were a number of people approaching the courts, and it was the court who decided when they looked at, I believe, I mean, they never told us this, but I believe when they looked at our case, because you have to put in a preamble. So when they looked at what we'd written about, for our judicial application for judicial review, because it was about the letter of the law, we never mentioned Brexit, we never mentioned any motions, we made it purely about the law. And because of that, I think that's why they chose us to be the lead claimant. But then I wasn't the only person client either. But the afternoon that had been decided, the law firm got attacked, all the abuse started, and the other 2 people, very successful men who were very well known, very wealthy, just said, no, we can't put up with it. You know, we won't be stepping forwards. So then it was left up to me. And I remember the next day going to see the lawyers, and they said, you know, we understand if you want to pull back. This is going to be, it's literally going to be you. And I just said, so what if I don't? And their answer was, well, we wouldn't have a case. And my answer back was, well, we've got to do this. We've got to protect Parliament. And I remember saying to them very clearly, it'll be okay. Lots of people will join us. Never quite happened. So there was a financial burden, and then there was the attacks and just a right-wing vitriol that got stirred up, and the anger and hate to the point of having to be looked after by a terrorist squad, us not leaving home. The most disgusting, because people could access my address for my business. So we ended up having, for example, my assistants being trained on how to open envelopes and packages and how to put them in the bag that then gets sealed and is taken to the police station. Because I'd get dolls with pins in them, or white substance, or I remember that somebody had read somewhere that I love cartoons and I'm a Marvel fan, which I am. And so they would send every week a cartoon that they would cut out and put of me being hung, raped, whatever it was, and they'd send it to me once a week. They'd gone to that sort of, you know, in a way, the online stuff I can dismiss because it's somebody sitting there, whatever, but to have gone to that sort of length of premeditated to do that. The team used to tell me, my security team used to tell me, those are the dangerous ones, because they could go to the next level. And, you know, people went to prison. A Viscount went to prison for trying to kill me. Somebody set up a crowdfunding platform to raise £10,000 to hire a hitman to kill me. You know, people don't realize. I mean, I hear it in the press now about what's happening to MPs, and I know I'm standing to be one, but I think we have to go in there and speak out about these things. But I never envisaged any of that would happen. I didn't know that's the country I lived in. You know, go back home, you black bitch, whatever it is. I mean, it came from everywhere. And it really got me to the point where I nearly gave up. And then when I was at my lowest point and I nearly gave up, and I was saying to my family and my husband, right, I just can't do this anymore. I woke up one morning and thought, so if I don't carry on, they've won. And that light bulb just sort of went off in my head. And I just thought, I'm just not going to let them win. They don't know who I am. They don't know what I've been through. I'm going to damn well show them. And in a way, they fueled me to carry on the fight. So if that's what they want to do, is to break me, actually the opposite happened. And I think, again, that's just the way I react. And because I've been a survivor, that I've thought, right, no, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight.
Most of the hatred, you would say, is because of race.
Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, quite often when I got journalists saying to me, if you were a white man, this wouldn't be happening to you. It was about, it was very much about, you know, you don't know your place, you'd be back in the kitchen, why are you not looking after your husband? You know, you're a bad mother. What really struck me is about a year after the first court case, I went to see the Suffragette Museum, and I was looking at the pamphlets and the things and the cartoons that were drawn about them. And it was almost exactly the same messaging from especially a particular newspaper. It was, you know, bad mother, you're irresponsible, you're not looking after your... I mean, literally, the comparisons really were stunning. Then if you think how long ago that was to hear. But then for me, it had the element of race as well. So it was not, it was this idea that as I mean, the three main things I think came across were, as a woman of color was not my place. I should shut up and be grateful. The second thing was that I couldn't possibly be bright enough. So there must be men behind me pulling my strings because I'm too stupid to know what I'm doing. And, how could I possibly understand all this legal stuff? And the third one was around funding and money. Can't possibly, again, there must be lots of rich men behind me paying for all of this, whatever. The concept that it was my money or my husband, no, it was my money doing this. So those three things together, what does that say about what people think about women, even today? I mean, we haven't really moved on that much, have we?
So you talked about community, and now we're heading to another important location.
Yeah,
in this neighborhood.
Beautiful St. Mark's Church. It's such a stunning building, but inside and outside. But it was also a place for not just quiet reflection, but also just to be. They have really raucous singing, and just a place where Luciane and I could come and just have that sense of community. Because I felt very lonely at times. I don't want people to think I'm just using my life, because I want to use my experiences of my life to help other people who are going through it, and for them to see me and think, I can survive too. I don't want to think, oh, well, she just got over that. I don't want it to be, I want to be very careful of how I use my experiences to help others. So when it's necessary, when it's the right time, I'll talk about it. And I suppose now that I'm standing for Parliament, for me, it feels more of the right time. I've been a campaigner for 32 years, and I've never really shared a lot of this with people because I didn't want them to see me as weak. But I think society's actually moved on now as well, that you can talk about mental health, you can talk about fragility, you can talk about building resilience. These were conversations you couldn't have. When I started in the city in '96, and I told anybody these words, nobody would. It was a different time and place. So I think society's moved on to a place where it's got the nasty bits about it and it's very divisive and the racism is there and the misogyny is there. But there's also an understanding that people are much more complex and that you have to not just judge everyone by what you see on the outside. That people are complicated and there's so much more going on. So I think that's an amazing thing that we've moved on to in society, that we can think of people in that holistic manner rather than just seeing them as just single dimensional. So it's easier to have those conversations. But I also wanted to tell people when I'm planning for Parliament, why am I doing this? It's not because I want to go into that place. It's not about the power. It's because I understand. I literally understand what it's like when all you have to eat that day is the leftovers on the side of your plate from your child because you want them to eat first. I've been there. And that's why I'm sharing now.